Why don't you get up? Oh, I'm many things. I'm a lawyer, and I'm an alcoholic. I'm an adult spouse of an Al-Anon. I know what Al-Anon brutality is. I've suffered under it. I'm a victim. We're kind of honoring the anniversary of Athens AA and the old timers and all that sort of thing. You know that people are living longer now, and as even drunks are getting sober, staying sober longer. So much so that we're getting more and more information about how they react later on in life. There's this old fellow sitting out in the park one day, and he was crying, just sobbing, and a man came by and said, "God," he said, "what's wrong, fella?" And he said, "Oh," I said, "God," he said, "my damn life is just," he said, "I was an alcoholic for many years." He said, "And I got sober, lost my family, lost my business, lost everything. But I got sober and I went to AA." He said, "I got in AA," and he said, "I ran across a young woman she's 30 years my junior." He said, "She's just a beautiful thing. God, she's so pretty. And she's wealthy." He said, "She's richer than hell is what she is. Have everything." He said, "She married me." He said, "It's just been wonderful since she's married me. She cares for me. She shares with me. She takes care of me. I have everything in her life that I want. She's absolutely fantastic in bed. Just marvelous." The guy said, "Well, why are you crying?" He said, "I can't remember where my damned house is." And they have homes for Al-Anons. You may not know that, but they do. Serenity Manor. The preacher. All right. The preacher called on two elderly Al-Anons at Serenity Manor not long ago, and he walked in and sat down, and gosh, they were just fussing around about him, and they were patting him and treating him so nice, and they wanted to give him some cake and some coffee, and they both rushed off to get it. And while he was sitting there, he noticed there's a bowl of peanuts right there, and he began to graze on those peanuts, and he was really embarrassed, but before they came back, he'd eaten every damn peanut in that bowl. And they walked back in. He pushed it kind of back under the table, so he hoped they wouldn't notice it. And they walked back in. They said, "Oh, we noticed you found the peanuts." He said, "Well, yes," I'm really embarrassed. I didn't mean to eat them all." She said, "Oh, not to worry, not to worry." He said, "Since we lost our teeth, all we can do is suck the chocolate off of them." Is that tacky? Is that tacky? I want to congratulate you on your program. I want to congratulate Athens Alcoholics Anonymous and all those old-timers who made it possible for this to be here tonight. I don't think you ought to go too long before you look back to your origins in AA and remember from whence we came. There's so much going on in the field of alcoholism today. So many people are getting sober, and so many people are advertising that they've got the solution and all this sort of thing. We really have a tendency to forget the miracle of our recovery. It wasn't very long ago. In fact, before 1935, there was no cure. There was no hope. There was no recovery for a person who had our disease. You either wound up insane, you died, you wound up in jail, or you died with the disease of alcoholism. And everyone around you died or lived with that disease at the same time. There's a part of our book, and I love our book. It's most important today for us to remember this book, because you see, we're doing a lot of improving. Every day we're getting better and better at fixing drunks. We do it with gestalt therapy. We do it with, all kinds of wonderful things, biofeedback. We just got all kinds of things going today, and it's real important for us not to remember from whence we came, because pretty quick, if we do, we'll lose it. If we don't remember, we'll lose it. I like to read a part of the book to you tonight to start this off, kind of in honor of Alcoholics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous in Athens, Texas. This is over on page 155 in my book. I'm sorry, on page 158 in my book. It says, so you see, there were 3 alcoholics in that town who now felt they had to give to others what they had found or be sunk. Of course, they're talking about Bill and Bob, and the next Bill, who was Bill Dodson, who was the 3rd member of Alcoholics Anonymous. And they, of course, were in Akron, Ohio. And it skips over and it talks about how they found some people. And these men had found something brand new in life. Though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober, that motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves to others. Then skipping a little further, it says, a year and 6 months later, these 3 had succeeded with 7 more. Seeing much of each other, scarce an evening passed that someone's home did not shelter a little gathering of men and women, happy in their release, and constantly thinking how they might present their discovery to some newcomer. In addition to these casual get-togethers, it became customary to set aside one night a week for a meeting to be attended by anyone who was interested in a spiritual way of life. Aside from fellowship and sociability, the prime object was to provide a time and place where people might bring their problems. Said many a distracting wife has visited this house to find loving and understanding companionship among the women who knew her problem, to hear from the lips of their husbands what had happened to them, to be advised how her own wayward mate might be hospitalized and approached when next he stumbled. Many a man, yet days from his hospital experience, has stepped over the threshold of that home into freedom. Many an alcoholic who entered there came away with an answer. He succumbed to that gay crowd inside, who laughed at their own misfortunes and understood his. Impressed by those who visited him in the hospital, he capitulated entirely when later, in an upper room of this house, he heard the story of some man whose experience closely tallied with his own. The expression on the faces of the women, that indefinable something in the eyes of the men, the stimulating and electric atmosphere of the place conspired to let him know that here was haven at last. The very practical approach to his problems, the absence of intolerance of any kind, the informality, the genuine democracy, the uncanny understanding which these people had was irresistible. He and his wife would leave elated by the thought of what they could now do for some stricken acquaintance and his family. They knew they had a host of new friends. It seemed they had known them always. They had seen miracles, and one had come to them. They had visioned the great reality, their loving and all-powerful Creator. That's an AA group. That's the first AA group. And it was from that group that one drunk took it to another drunk, and one drunk at a time, the people in Athens, Texas, or Dallas, or wherever it is, can trace their lineage back to those people. They were not conducting group therapy in that room. They were not experiencing behavioral modification in that room. They had found a way to make contact with a power greater than themselves. The book says the central fact in our lives today is that we have found a knowing and all-powerful Creator who has done for us what we cannot do for ourselves. A spiritual awakening had occurred and had revolutionized the way they saw life, their fellows, and their God. That was the great fact. The great reality they found was deep inside themselves. They found, the book says, that God was as much a fact as they were. Now, what are we talking about? Are we talking about something that's supernatural? Are we talking about something that's way far out there? No, we're not. God is a word. That's just a word that describes something. And until you've experienced that something in one form or another, it means not much to you. And what's happened in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is that we have found a way to help one another experience that power. Not believe what I believe. Find your own beliefs. Have your own experience. And is it something that's only reserved for a few? Absolutely not. Our book tells us if what we have seen and felt means anything at all, it is that every man, no matter what his race, color, or creed, can form a meaningful relationship with a loving Creator if he has the honesty and the willingness to try. It talks about broad highways. It means it's available for everybody who wants to get involved and do the things you got to do. God does for us what we won't do for ourselves. What we cannot do for ourselves, not what we won't do. That'd be wonderful if you do that. It's what we cannot do for ourselves, but that means we got to do our part, doesn't it? And our part is to practice the program as it's outlined in this book. That's the way it happens. It happened to me that way. To the extent I've had success in my life, to the extent I've had fulfillment in my life, to the extent I've found happiness in my life, it's come about through doing the things I've been directed to do in this simple book. 164 pages of text and a lifetimes of experience that I've seen all around me. There's lots of debate today, I guess, about, Susan talked today about the alcoholic family. The fact is that everybody comes here with their own kind of problems. I was thinking about it today when we were talking about my family. As near as I can tell, and near as I know, both my mother's family and my own, there have been 3 divorces, as long back to through my great-grandparents that I can think of. Deep, strong families. I occupy the unique position of probably being the only alcoholic. There was another uncle back there that was they wondered about him sometime, but I just qualified. I'm just kind of the black sheep of the family, I guess. And I come with my background, and you come with yours, and we all are different. We got here different ways, but we all have some basic common things. I was listening to a tape the other day by a minister who he's from Minnesota, I believe, and he talked at the international conference in Miami. I don't remember the year of that, but it was along about 1955 or somewhere in that time frame, I believe. He's followed Alcoholics Anonymous always, and he's a student of the human beings everywhere. And he says that all human beings suffer or share one thing in common, and that is we want to avoid pain. There's just not a human being anywhere that doesn't want to avoid pain. Now, we're not just talking about physical pain. We're talking about all kinds of pain. We're talking about embarrassment. We're talking about rejection. We're talking about anger, greed, jealousy, all of those things which cause pain. He says we all suffer. We all have another common trait. We all find some way to try to avoid it. And many people today are it's becoming more common to classify and recognize how we did it. Some people use sex. Some people eat incessantly. Some people drink. Other people are workaholics. Some people do all of the above. But sooner or later, our addictions catch us. And the reason for it is that we have an underlying problem that we never were able to deal with. And then we get this other problem on top of that, the addictive nature that we have. And then we decide, well, that's the problem. Society, the world, everybody decides, well, that's the problem. It's the drinking problem. We don't have a drinking problem. Alcohol is not our problem. The book presupposes that we don't drink anymore. Its sole function is to teach you and I how to live after we have stopped drinking. There's not a page in here that tells you how to stop drinking. It just says you're going to do that. And so the rest of it follows. I was raised out in West Texas, a little old town. Well, I didn't live in town. I lived northwest of town, 10 miles. The town's Bovina. It's about 1/10 the size of Athens. Big town. Nice country. Good people. Dry area. And I was raised by two loving parents, lived out on a farm, and I guess we were poor. We didn't know we were. Everybody's just about like we were. And I had a dog. My dog's name was Patches. Patches was a remarkable dog. I mean, he was an all-American dog. He was mostly bulldog, and he was tough as a boot. One time, a little while before the story I'm about to tell you, he caught up with a badger, one of the hardest animals in the world for a dog to fight. Big bull badger up in the pasture. Took him all morning. Fought that badger all morning, but he finally killed him. Dad weighed the badger, and the badger weighed 1 pound more than Patches did. Hell of a fight. Every day for a week, Patches would go up there and pick up the badger and just shake hell out of him, just to let him know that he was still on top of that deal, you know. Tells you a little about his character. He was good with kids. He was just a good watchdog. Just everything you wanted in a dog, and he had no problems. He was well-fed. He was admired. Everybody liked him, patted him. Just a marvelous dog. Had no problems. We didn't think. One morning, a boar hog came down from our neighbor's place. Big old boar. Had a long yellow tusk, sticking out from his lips. And he came in our yard, and Patches decided that he would go out and get hold of the hog. And that was not a decision made lightly, because bulldogs, when they get hold of things, they don't like to turn loose of them. That's the way they fight. He went out there and got hold of that boar, and it created a problem in our family. Right away there was squealing and barking going on, and my dad got out there, and he was kicking hogs and dogs and cussing, and he was mad. And I got out there right away too, because I was pretty well convinced that my dog was about to be killed, and I was trying to help Dad. And my mother got out there because she knew her little boy was going to get right in the middle of that hog and dog fight, and was going to get killed by the husband, the hog, or the dog. And so she was squealing and hollering. Everybody there had a problem. Everybody there knew the solution to that problem was for Patches to turn loose that damned hog. Turn him loose. Well, he didn't, but he came off after a while. And as he came off, that old hog swung around and cut his throat. And we caught him, and we held him and patted him and got him under a water hydrant and cooled him off and put some medicine on him and slowed him down, and problem was solved. We turned him loose. He went right back, got hold of that hog again. Same kind of problem, Damn, there's chaos in the barnyard again, Cussing and kicking and squealing and barking, and I was out there crying. Mother's out there wringing her hands trying to get me out of the deal. Once again, everybody there knew the solution to the problem. Hog knew it. We knew it. Everybody knew you're supposed to Patches, turn loose that damned hog. Once again, he came off, and we caught him this time. This time we recognized old Patches was not in control of his emotions. His emotions were dominating his intellect. He was out of control. And so we did the only thing we knew to do, and that was commit him. We took him up to the water hydrant and we tied him under the damn water hydrant. Let him think about his life. Recognize he's never had a good day catching hold of hogs yet. Jerry don't want him to catch hold of hogs. Nobody on the farm, hog doesn't want it. Nobody seems to like it. It's just not much fun. You get cut up pretty bad. Just do an inventory and understand, by God, that catching hogs is out. And we watched him for a while. And you could tell he was well, because his tail began to wag. He had the kind of little silly grin on his face, and I was sitting there playing with him, and I was loving him and nurturing. Everything was wonderful, getting no more problems, right? Ran the hog completely off the yard, out of sight, out of mind. We got this deal solved. We turned him loose a couple, 3 hours later. He had to go 2 miles to find that hog the next time. But he got him one more time. That's the best story of alcoholism I know. See, we all thought the problem was catching hold of the hog. Hell, that wasn't a problem. That wasn't a problem. The problem was what made him go back after he knew he was hurt. What sent him the first time? Why does he go back again and again and again? And we know today no more, not one bit more than Dr. Silkworth knew when he wrote to the doctor's part of the big book. We have a physical reaction to alcohol that when we drink it, it chemically changes reality. And something about us, some physical side of us, sends us back again and again and again to drink it. Always we drink more than we wanted to. We always get ourselves in trouble. Maybe not every time, but almost always. And the longer you do it, the more difficulty we have. But we have another side that's equally deadly. And that's like the second half of the big book. We don't manage. We can't manage without it some way. We have a deep thought called an obsession, a thought that pushes all other thoughts out of our mind. And that thought is, a drink would make it better. I don't care what it is. It can be good times, bad times, boredom, happiness, whatever it is, if you're an alcoholic. One day the thought will come to you, a drink would make this better. And when that thought gets in there, it kicks out all the other thoughts. It kicks out all the blood oaths, the hands on the Bible, the telling mother I'll never drink again. All those go right. We just forget about them. And we drink again. And that's a disease. It's a disease. And we have no power over alcohol. And we have fought and tried to control alcohol to the extent that we think we ought to be able to do it. It's a totally illogical disease. Is it logical for a grown man to decide, I'm just going to drink a couple of drinks? Couldn't you do that? Couldn't anybody? Why? Why, hell, yes. Anybody could do that if they really wanted to. It appears that way to the family. It appears that way to everybody. But when the alcoholic drinks the first one, he's gone. He's gone. The mind sends out a signal, says, my goodness, I think we'll have another one of those. There he goes. There he goes. And he can't understand why he did that. Why did I do that? People ask him why. Hell, he don't know why. It just seemed like a good idea at the time, is what I used to say. But I had no more idea than a ghost why I did those things. I just did them. And that's the nature of our disease, and it destroys you from the inside. It destroys your confidence, your self-esteem. It literally destroys you, and you begin to think that that's the only problem you've got. If I could just not drink, or if I could just control the way I drink, everything else would be all right. My life would be functioning pretty well. That's the way it seemed to me. And I didn't realize that before I ever got to the drinking part, certain forces, certain ideas were at work in my life that doomed me to failure, one way or another, because I was on the wrong track, and I couldn't see it. I had found ways that I was trying to avoid pain. I wanted you to think about me in a certain way. I can remember back, some of my earliest memories have to do with what you thought of me and what I ought to be. They started saying to me things like, Jerry, someday you're going to grow up to be a man. That meant I wasn't one then, but sure enough I was going to grow up to one before long. And that was a good thing, apparently. And they said, little men don't cry. Oh, well, now I'm a little man, you see, only I ain't supposed to cry. Little men are not afraid. No fear in this little man, no sir. The only problem with a lot of those ideas with me was that as I went along and began to think and decide how a man would act, and what a man ought to do, and what a little man ought to do, and what Jerry Jones ought to be and do, and compare it to what I was and what I was doing, I flunked. I flunked over and over again. I had pain. I was scared sometimes. And I wasn't as good as I ought to be. I happened to have the strange part of this disease that made me, I had the idea that I had to do something to be somebody. I had to be a winner if you were going to have anything to do with me at all. And so and not only did I have to be a winner, I had to compete at every damn thing that came down the pike. It didn't matter what it was. At one time in my life, I had a real conflict one day in high school. I was supposed to sing at a voice recital, run in a track meet, and show hogs at the county fair all the same day. And I just, that's the way my life has always been. I was always supposed to be competing and doing in all of those places at the same time. Nobody ever, they keep telling me, you're doing great here, you ought to give up that other stuff. And I couldn't give up anything else. I had to do it all. I had a terrible problem with this man thing, this macho thing. I went out football. They came through the 8th grade one time. When I started school, I started at a little school, Pleasant Hill, New Mexico. It was a crossroads, and they had the whole school was in a little, not much bigger building than this. And we had 4 or 5 grades with one teacher, and that kind of deal. And then I moved to a big school. Hell, there were 13 in my graduating class from high school. Big school. We had all of us in one room, We never did have to go to any other classes with anybody else. And they were looking for football players. They liked that first little school. They wouldn't let you bring a football to school because somebody might get hurt. Bovina didn't have that concern at all. They were looking for guys to go out there and play football. And it looked good to me because it got you a lot of attention. People accepted you. God, I could tell the guys around school they were the heavies were wearing them maroon jackets with them big B's on there. That looked good to me. So they came through the 8th grade and said they thought I was going to be big someday. I was skinny as a rail, and they figured I was going to put on some muscle somewhere. It never did happen, but they thought it was. And so they said, would you like to go out for football with the high school team this spring training? Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, you bet. And I didn't know anything about football. I had no more idea than a goose how to get that uniform on. They gave me a whole stack of that stuff, and I went in there, I remember that day, and I was just watching people. And as they dressed, I dressed. Man, if they'd left me in there alone, there's no telling what I'd have come out with. But I was watching, and I put it on. And I got out there, and I figured that stuff, hey, you're not supposed to get hurt with all that stuff on, are you? I want to tell you something. When one of them big devils runs on you, it don't matter the difference what you got on, it hurts like hell. And they worked me over good that first day, and I got back in after they ran the hell out of me. I was pretty sure I had all the football I'm ever going to want. I just, that's enough. And I came in from playing football and started trying to get out of that damn contraption. And a couple of my classmates got out of theirs and threw them in the corner and told the coach that we ain't going to play no more. We don't like to play football. And left. And the coach and some of the seniors were sitting back there, and they watched those guys walk out, and they began to talk about guys who had yellow streaks down their back. Yeah. I was trying to get out of my stuff so I get the hell out of there, too. I'm quitting. They turned around to me, though, after they talked about them yellow streaks, and they said, Jones, what do you think about football? I said, I've been wanting to play football all my life. I like football. And right there I wrote myself into a deal that lasted 4 or 5 years, and I never was made for it. I just kept breaking things and pulling apart at different places, but I hung in there, by God, because I didn't want nobody talking about that yellow streak, No, sir, not Irene's little boy Jerry. Not going to be that kind of talk. That's what I did. I lived my life, you see, because I wanted you to like me. I had already some ideas in my life that were not working. And they pushed me and I got real uncomfortable. When I got to college, my world kept getting bigger. I went from that little old bitty school to a little college, but it was so much bigger than anything I'd ever seen anywhere. And the people seemed to be a lot smarter. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know which fork to use. Not that Canyon, Texas had much concern about which fork you use, but I had a concern about it. I heard somewhere you're supposed to do things a certain way. You're supposed to dip your soup out or in. I didn't know. Still don't know for sure. I still watch them like I did in the dressing room, see which spoon we pick up and whether we're dipping out or we're dipping in. And I was worried about that kind of stuff because I wanted to look good. And I was trying to play basketball, and I was trying to play basketball with guys. I never had seen people that big before. I didn't know they had anybody that big. My God. You know, I quit shooting crip shots altogether because every time I'd go up to try to shoot a layup, I'd eat the basketball. They'd just shove it down my throat. And I was trying to do all these things, and I was very uncomfortable. Reality was a bitch for me. And I wasn't having much fun. They were smarter in class than I was. And then one day, some guys came along and said they were having a fraternity rush party. Would I like to come out? And I went out and I drank some beer and I watched what they were doing. They didn't seem to be very responsible. They didn't seem to give a damn whether they were or were not responsible. I kind of liked that. That kind of... They had a bunch of little old girls out there that didn't seem to give a damn either. They were just happy as hell to be running and playing, and I kind of got to liking that. And I just bought into that. I didn't like that damn beer. Made me sick. Had a terrible hangover. But if that was the price you had to pay, it's okay. And it wasn't very long until that alcohol chemically changed reality for me right away. And I didn't care. It let me not care. It let me not worry. I didn't worry about whether you liked me or didn't like me. I liked doing what I was doing. I liked running and playing. I liked where we did it. I liked the people I did it with. I had absolutely no intention of ever giving that up. I lost friends doing it. Some people that I went to college from in that little hometown of mine told me I was making a mistake. I was not doing the right thing. Good boys, nice young men didn't do what I was doing. And I regretfully told them to bug off. I didn't say it just that way. I just went the other way. And I remember watching those guys walk down the street one day and wondered, why in the world wouldn't anybody want to do what I'm doing? Why wouldn't you want to do this? I just like the ease and comfort of alcohol. And that became a pattern for my life. That became my solution. And I continued through my life, and it was always my solution. I always competed. I never changed those underlying ideas, not one bit. And I never matured in my appreciation of what those things were doing in my life until I was in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And everyone around me began to say, Jerry, you'd be a better lawyer, you'd be a better father, you'd be a better this, that, or the other, if you just didn't drink the way you drink. My wife went to a psychiatrist about it. She tried to get me to get help. I took tests. I did all sorts of things, but I had absolutely no intention of ever giving up alcohol. I would go to any lengths to solve problems so that I wouldn't have to give up alcohol. I had some problems as I went along. I used to smoke about 2 or 3 packs of cigarettes a day. I was an automatic smoker. No matter how bad I was drunk, when I always managed to have my cigarettes located in my subconscious mind, so that when I woke up in the middle of the night, swung my feet over the side of the bed and reached out, my hand came in touch with my cigarettes and my lighter. Just knew where they were. I lit a cigarette, got up and wandered around the house, did whatever I had to do. Sometimes I found my way back and got back in bed, and a lot of times I wasn't through smoking my cigarette when I got back. But I was always tired. There's something about what I was doing that made you really tired. And I'd want to sit there and finish smoking my cigarette and rest. And sometimes I'd have to kind of lay back on the pillow and let smoke. Well, once or twice, a spark would come off of that cigarette, and, little holes, nothing big, in the blanket, just Little old piddly holes. Nothing to get excited the way my wife got excited, I won't tell you that about. And that's why you have bedspreads, isn't it? You cover that kind of crap up. I was not impressed by her complaints and her grave concerns about my little holes in the bed. Until one night when I woke up and my side of the bed was flaming. It was coming up pretty good. I want to tell you, that's hell to explain. And if you ever have that happen to you, I'll just give you the best explanation I've ever heard. I guess it was on fire when I got in it. We got her out, and I finished the night some way, and then I got up the next morning, and I had to leave right away the next morning. I don't remember why I had to leave, but I had to get the hell out of there. And I didn't want to talk about any of this. I was willing to admit my responsibility, and I told Billy to buy any kind of damn bed she wanted, and I left. And I got home, and she'd written me a letter. She said, "Dear Jerry, I've been talking to you about your smoking and drinking. I've been worrying about your smoking and drinking. It's now reached the point where I cannot go to sleep at night for fear of my own life and the lives of our children because of your smoking and drinking. You've simply got to do something about this." And I did, by God. Within 3 or 4 days, I'd quit smoking. And I hadn't smoked since that day. I just quit smoking. It never occurred to me to do anything about drinking. That never crossed my mind, that was a part of the problem, really. I just had those kind of somnambulistic states where I just couldn't remember things. And I didn't associate that with alcohol. And I kept solving peripheral problems or trying to solve them until I virtually became a recluse in my own home. My life consisted of going to work, staying at work as long as I could, concluding whatever work I could or until I got through. And when I got through, I got in my car and went home. I didn't drink anywhere else much. And the reason I didn't drink anywhere else much is because I had been inappropriately drunk in a number of places that had caused embarrassment to me and interfered with my business, my profession. And I didn't want that. I did not want a DWI. I did not want to have to explain that. I had some senior partners who had been alcoholic lawyers, and I'd heard what my partners said about them and the way they drank, and that wasn't going to be me. And so I went home to do my drinking. And when I brought my disease home and shared it with my family. And it was pathetic. You know, they talk about Jekyll and Hyde. I understand Jekyll and Hyde. I would walk in happy and cheerful, thinking about having my first drink, pat the kids on the head, sit down in my chair, begin to have my first drink, have my second drink, maybe on my third drink, and then my mind would drift back into some period of my life when I was disappointed with the way it was going, like yesterday. And what I ought to have said to that son of a bitch when he did that, and what I'm going to do to him next time. And by God, he'll want mercy the next time we get in this kind of situation, and when that happens, I'll just tell him thumbs down. I'll kill that son of a bitch right there. He'll be hanging on a rope over an edge of a cliff, and I'll have an axe in my hand. You know, these kind of thoughts. And about that time, one of the kids comes up and taps me on the knee and wants a quarter for an ice cream cone. And then you see the madman come out. "What in the hell do you mean you want a quarter? God almighty, do you think I'm made of money? Billy, what the hell? Can't you raise these kids where they understand something about... Why do I have to be nagged about money all the time?" You know, all this kind of stuff just come pouring out of my mouth. I wasn't mad at the kid. I was mad at the guy yesterday. I was mad at my life. There was nothing in my life that was good. And I used alcohol to blot out the fact that my life, these old ideas that I had, were not working. They gave me no fulfillment, no purpose in my life whatsoever. And I was in deep trouble. And I drank to oblivion almost always. And if you had asked me, and many people did, "Why do you drink so much?" the real answer was, I might say, well, I was tired. I've been under a lot of pressure. But the real answer inside me was, because I want to. It's my damn life, it's my bottle, and I'll drink it any goddamn time in any way I want to drink it. I was defiant as a man can be about that. I was non-negotiable subject matter. Just don't talk to me about drinking. And I really thought that's the way I was drinking. I really thought I was drinking that amount because of that. Then one night I found out my wife had fallen in with low companions. Well, she had. She had drifted off with a bunch of squirrelies. I found out about it through my kids, and my daughter said, I asked where her mother was doing or what she had been doing or something, and she said she'd been going to a family group. Well, this had a real bad sound because we'd been, well, you don't understand, we'd been discussing whether we were going to keep a family together or not at all quite a bit, you know. And here she was going off. She'd been off to a psychiatrist once before, you know. Now we're talking about a family group. So when I got hold of her, I cross-examined her a little bit. I'm pretty good at that. I grill hell out of her every once in a while, and she's real good at dodging and ducking, and she just mastered it at evading telling me the truth. Probably took me a half hour of going through questions like, where have you been? Out. What have you been doing? Visiting with friends. Who were they? You wouldn't know them. Where were you? At Preston Center. What in the hell were you doing at Preston Center? Oh, sharing my experience, strength, and hope. You know, just finally I got the word Al-Anon out of her. Now, I thought that was some kind of aluminum can or something like that. I'd never heard that word before, had you? Al-Anon? Al-Anon. And I had to ask a few more questions about Al-Anon, and I found it had something to do with Alcoholics Anonymous. Didn't know anything about Alcoholics Anonymous, but I had understood from the questioning of my wife that Al-Anon, to be a member of Al-Anon, you must have a friend or anybody else in the damn world who has a drinking problem. And as near as I could tell, I was the only candidate for my wife's admission. Do you know anybody can go to one of them damn meetings? They don't check roll or nothing, just anybody can come. And hell, the judges, you know, judges are always out trying to get elected. And that sort of thing, they're apt to show up damn near anywhere you invite them. And a judge could see her there. One of my partners or my partner's wives might see her there. One of their friends who knew me might see her there. A jury member might see her there. A witness, a client. My God, there were thousands of people in Dallas who might see her there, and if any one of them saw her there, the result was immediate and disastrous. They would conclude that I was an alcoholic. I had not been given a chance to defend myself at all. They would tell one of my partners would kick me out of the law firm. The clients would find out why they'd kicked me out of the law firm. The money would stop. When the money stopped, the cars would go, the house would go. We're not talking about money for kids in college now. We're talking about eating and staying warm in the wintertime. We have an economic and professional disaster on our hands here, and I explained that to my wife as clearly as I have ever explained anything in my life. And being the gentle and kind soul that I am, I asked her not to go back. And she said, I need to go. And I said, you may not go back. And she said, I gotta go. And I don't remember exactly what I said next, but it had something to do with killing her if she went back. And she just kept going. And I've never been as threatened in my life. I viewed myself, and a lot of other people viewed me, as a very successful person. I had achieved more in my life than I ever dreamed that I would achieve, both in terms of money, in terms of position, in terms of community standing. All of those things I had done. They were empty. They didn't mean a damn thing. As I got them, I always thought they were going to fix me. I thought when I got a little more money, I'd be happy, and it wasn't enough when I got there. I remember when I thought, if I ever make $10,000 a year, I'll be happy. That'll be enough. And I made $10,000, and it was not enough. When I got 2 cars, that'd be it. Had those 2 cars about a week. You know what? Wrong kind of cars. Just not right. And I was chasing more, better, and different. And I'd been chasing more, better, and different for a long time until I had achieved more than I ever thought I'd have. And it become something I absolutely despised. But I couldn't see any way. The only thing I had was those things. And Billy's going to that public meeting to deal with my problem just drove me crazy. And I couldn't leave her alone. We talked about this every night. And I got all kinds of ways of starting fights, of easing in, I tried frontal attacks. I tried fear. I tried to sneak up on her. One night I was sneaking up on her. And I started off with some facts that I knew she would not argue with. I was going to establish these facts, certain facts, and then I was going to win my argument with just a little bit more, And I started off with the simplest one of them all. I said, Billy, you think that I'm an alcoholic. And she said, I don't know whether you are or not. I said, what do you mean? You've been calling me an alcoholic for years. And she said, yes, but I was wrong. Did you ever try to start a fight with somebody that's acting like that? I mean, it's just damn near impossible to get anything going. She said, it doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I think. What you think is the only thing that's important. And I made a mistake then. I really did. I was off balance, and I did something no good trial lawyer ever does. I asked a question when I didn't have a goose's idea what the answer was. I said, well, if I wanted to find out if I was an alcoholic, how would I do it? My God. They got an answer. They got an answer. They really do. She said they have a book called what did Marty Mann write? Primer on Alcoholism, that says that you ought to try drinking some controlled drinking. Drink 2 drinks a day every day for 6 months. And I said, you've been trying to get me to stop drinking for years. Now, is it my understanding you want me to drink 2 drinks, just 2 drinks every day for 6 months? She said, that's what I want you to do. Now, I realized at this point that I was way over my head. I was dealing with something I did not understand. And the thing for me to do was quit talking and get the hell out of there. So I did. And I went and sat down in my green chair and got my bottle out and had a few drinks and began to think about this thing. And quietly in my own mind, I decided that probably I had been drinking too much. At that point in my life, I was drinking about a quart a day. I even recognized that day, I think, that wasn't social. And I just had been meaning to cut back just as soon as I got things settled down a little bit. And couldn't get them settled down. And I decided that I would probably just have to take that damn test. If I was ever going to get her out of Al-Anon and protect the only things I could possibly save out of a life that wasn't worth living, I was going to have to get her out of Al-Anon. Now, I didn't tell her I was going to take the damn test. Do not ever tell them you're taking the test. It works better if they don't know you're taking the test. And I started trying to take the damn test. Now, I had to change the test a little. Not bad now, just a little. Wait a minute. You don't understand. It said 2 drinks. 2 drinks don't do anything for me. Nothing. But I had a big glass. And I figured if I could have 2 drinks before dinner, 2 big drinks before dinner, and a big drink after dinner, that'd be all right. Nobody could criticize me for that, could they? Could they? I don't think they ever would have. By the way, changing that from 2 to 3, that's cheating on the test. That's the funniest test that you'll ever run across in your life. The more you cheat on that test, the harder it is to pass it. You'll never run across another test in your life like that one. And I started trying to take that damn test, and I understood the next thing there is to know about alcoholism, and that is that it centers in your mind. Because when I'd have a drink, or 2 drinks, knowing full well that that's all I was going to have, a thought would come to me. And mine was always something like, what in the hell are you doing? What are you doing? Are you over 21? Are you a man? Who pays the mortgage and the rent and furnishes everything for all these damn people? Who does that? Are you going to let a bunch of little old ladies in tennis shoes tell you I drink whiskey? And the answer was always hell no. And I got up and went to the bar and I drank the damn bottle. And I got up the next morning and thought, why did you do that? Why did you do that? Another thing would happen to me. I'd have the 2 drinks and get ready for the 3rd one, and I'd think, I just don't feel like taking the damn test today. To hell with it, I ain't going to take the damn test today. And I drank the bottle. There was another thing I did. This was an important thing to me. The most important activity in my life. And I could forget it. I could forget to take the test for 2 or 3 weeks. And every day I forgot it, I drank the bottle. But when I remembered it, every morning when I remembered it, it was always the same. He blew it again. What the hell's wrong with you? Have you no willpower? Have you no morals? What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you doing this? Don't you realize how important it is to get that demented woman out of Al-Anon? Will you drink 3 drinks today? I will drink 3 drinks today, only to fail to drink 3 drinks that day. I don't mean I got drunk every day. And I don't mean I gave that test any little short run. I worked on it about 1.5 years. But to my memory today, I never passed the test one time. I never stayed with the 3 drinks I intended to drink. And at the end of that period of time, I want you to know I had been whipped as nothing in life has ever whipped me before. I knew, now I'm not drinking that amount, the amount I'm drinking because I want to. I was drinking that amount in spite of whether I wanted to or not. Despite my decision not to drink it, I was drinking it. I couldn't understand why I was doing that. That's not the way I did business at all. And I was whipped. I was scared to death. I had no idea what was going on with me. I was willing to concede in my own mind that I was an alcoholic. I'd known that for maybe a long time. But my God, I was going downhill. I couldn't settle. I couldn't stop where I was. I couldn't get life to let me just close it out with what I had achieved. It was going down the tubes. I was going down the tubes, and I knew that was taking place. My marriage was just about gone. Kids didn't have anything going with me anymore. I was insane about my son's involvement in life. I was living my life through his. His life looked pretty good. Mine was the pits. And I didn't have anything to do with my daughter particularly. She was younger, and I didn't know what to do with her, and I just was totally caught up in my son, and I was drinking, and I was a damn fool many times. I was going to football games and basketball games and baseball games, and I was always fighting the damned officials, and I was criticizing the coaches, and I was critiquing him all the way home and just driving him crazy with what I was doing. He was a pitcher in baseball, and he's trying to get the umpire to call strikes. You know, I'm the angry parent hanging on the back of the fence with my talking about the umpire's parentage and his eyesight, and wanted to get him come out from behind there, and I'll do things to you that we don't want to talk about right here, and really helping him out a lot, you know. And I was just, my life was just gone. And on January the 1st, 1973, I had a bad December, 1972. And I had intended to last at least until the new year came in. And I remember planning it, and I remember watching the way I drank on December 31st. And I knew we were going out to dinner, and I knew I was going to be able to come home after we'd had dinner and bring in the new year with some friends. And I woke up, and I looked outside, and it was dark. And Billy was in her robe, and I said, God, shouldn't we be getting dressed to go to dinner? And she said, oh, Jerry, don't you know what time it is? And I looked at my watch, and it was 10 o'clock in the evening. I'd passed out at 5 o'clock that afternoon. I'd missed the new year by 7 hours. Not even close. And I was sick of me. I didn't know what was wrong with me, but I was sick of me. And I had one more drink and went to bed again. And I drank that drink for oblivion. I just wanted to blot it all out again. And I got up the next morning to what appeared to me to be the sorriest looking world I'd ever seen in my life. And I had no hope, and I had only one thing that I had never tried before that was left to me to try, and that was to stop drinking. And I went in and told my wife that morning that I was going to try to stop drinking, and she said, "Would you like for me to call some people from Alcoholics Anonymous to come talk to you?" And I told her, hell no. Hell no. I got myself in this mess, and I'll get myself out if anybody can. And she gave me the big book and the little 24-hour day book, said you might find these helpful, and I threw them against the wall, kind of at her, and said, "Let me tell you something, lady, you keep them damned AAs and that AA literature and them dogs and them kids and yourself the hell out of my way. This ain't going to be easy, and I'm not sure I can do this at all. But if I can do it, it's going to be done by me." I did it for 2 days. Well, there's strange things happening to me. You know, if you're doing something bad for you and you stop, it ought to get better, right? Didn't work that way with me. I had some strange things going on. I heard somebody describe it the other day. Said they got real quick when they stopped drinking. I got quick too. You know that I was looking, had the yippies, and I shook, and I sweated. It's January, you know, and it's colder than hell, and I'm sweating inside and out, and couldn't sit still, walk the floors. Never felt as alone in my entire life. Totally isolated. Looked at people laughing, going about their lives, doing their jobs. And I knew I couldn't do those things. I knew something had hold of me, and I couldn't. They weren't having the same kind of problems I was having. And I sneaked in that day, and I picked up that little 24-hour day book. I didn't want Billy to see me reading it, because I declared that I wasn't going to take any help. And I looked at that little 24-hour day book, and it said that on I'm smart, keen, incisive, alcoholic mind that I have. You know, I picked it up, and it's got a date on each page. I turned back to January 2nd. That's what it was. And it said this year we're going to give our drinking problems to God. Here I am with an industrial-grade problem, and they're talking Sunday school crap to me again. I almost laughed. I tossed that little old book out in the middle of the table, and I thought, God almighty, if that isn't something. Give my drinking problem to God. How you give it to somebody that you can't find? I've been looking for God all my life. I've gone up to the front and dedicated my life and rededicated and rededicated my life. Nothing ever happened to me. People came up to me afterwards and loved my neck and hugged me and thought it was a wonderful thing and said, "Don't you feel different?" And you know what I told them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I feel a lot different. I did. I was more disappointed than I ever was, because not a damn thing had happened to me. I wanted clear, convincing proof that God existed. I wanted him to talk to me out of that bush. I wanted to see some kind of spectacular thing, a ghost or a haint or something. I wanted some proof before I bought into this damn deal. And I couldn't find it. And you won't find it either on your terms. You see, we can't get well if we're alcoholic on our own terms. And you can't find this power except on its terms. And its terms are outlined in what you can do and what only you can do. Nobody can do it for you. You got to know you're powerless over alcohol. You got to know your life's unmanageable. You got to look at people around you and see whether you can believe or do not believe that you can be restored to some kind of a sane life. Only you can do that, you see. I can't give you my beliefs. I can talk to you forever, and I'll not get one belief from me to you. You're going to have to operate on your own beliefs, and that's just where it ought to be. Because when you have them, they're yours. What I'd been doing all my life was I was frozen between what I could believe and what I didn't believe. And I'd gone to all those preachers and all those churches, and they'd give me a long list of things I could believe, what I had to believe, and maybe I could believe 10% of them. But there was 90% I couldn't believe, and so I couldn't act on anything. And the program of AA told me, throw away what you don't believe. Forget it. All it's doing is keeping you from acting on what you do believe in. Start with what you believe and begin to go. Make a commitment. Make a decision to turn your will, what you want, and your life, what's going on around you, to the care of somebody else. A power greater than yourself. See if you can see people that are doing that. And you will not find a place in the world that's better than the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to find people who are doing that. It's marvelous. It's the damnedest place you'll ever see in your life. Nobody talks about what a big job they got in AA. Nobody talks about how much money they make. Nobody talks about swimming pools, power, or prestige in AA except in a negative sense. I never had been to a place like that. They don't talk about their strengths in AA. They talk about their weaknesses. That's the damnedest thing I ever saw in my life. They don't do things normal in AA. They stand up there and, tell the damnedest stories about themselves you ever saw in your life. Had 47 convulsions and wrecked 342 automobiles and was locked up in jail 25 times. And everybody just falls on the damn floor laughing like hell. I thought they were crazy as hell. And then I began to think, well, hell, I did a couple of them things. I did a couple of kind of cute things. I might just tell them about one of my things. I'm competitive. So I multiplied how much I drank by 2 and told them a couple of lies, Then I told them something true, and you know what they did? They laughed with me. They put their arms around me, and they said to others, looky here, Jerry is beginning to open up. He is beginning to be himself. And that's all you can ever be. I'd spent all my life trying to be something else and said I needed to be myself. And the program of Alcoholics Anonymous is designed to let you be yourself. It lets you see who you are and who you are not. And it gets you in the right place, and when you are in that right place, you have an experience with a power greater than yourself. It is your own experience. Is it supernatural? No, it's as normal and as natural and as... It seems it's just the right thing when you do that. But we got to do our part, you see. We got to find out who we are. Do you know that not a thing has to be added to you to make you spiritually perfect? Not one thing has to be added to you. You got everything, you got all the God stuff you'll ever need. You just got to quit doing the things that block you from the power. That's what our book says. Find self-centeredness and get it out of your life, and you will experience the power. Lack of power was our dilemma, but when you remove self-centeredness, you don't have to do anything more than that. You will experience the power. I didn't know what self-centeredness was. I skipped that part of the book when I read about selfishness and self-centeredness. These are the root of our problems. Hell, I'm not selfish or self-centered. I'm not tight-fisted with my money. Hell, I'm supporting them damn kids, aren't I? And that wife. I wasn't. I just skipped that part of the page. A little later on, I had to go back and read it, and I began to try to understand what that word meant. I found it in a simple place. The one place I found a lot of places later on, but one of the first places I found it was on the freeways in Dallas. I don't know whether you do or not, but I own one lane of traffic. It's called my lane. And what goes on in my lane, either in front of me or behind me, is my business. I take it personally. I don't consider that the people don't know who I am. I don't consider for a moment that they don't know where I want to go or how fast I want to travel. When they cut in front of me and slow down, I take personal offense to that. It's my responsibility at times to punish those people. I have to. My lane changes quickly. I can change from this to this, just an instantaneous. I got a new lane. I don't know who owned it before, but it's mine now. And I pass the wrong drawer, and just before I get all the way past him, I cut in. Run that son of a bitch off the road. Get back in my lane again, you see. Now, you see, that's self-centeredness. That's self-centeredness. And I didn't know that. I was living my life as though my life was my lane. Everything that I saw, everything that went on around me, I took personally. And it made me feel like I was not appreciated. It made me feel like people were always looking at me. It made me feel like I had to excel when nobody was paying any attention. It drove me as nothing has ever driven me. It was my mistaken illusion that I was the center of the universe virtually. Now, if you'd asked me, are you the center of the universe, I'd have said, hell no. And I would have known I wasn't, but I acted as if I was. I took everything personally, and I couldn't see what that was doing to me. I didn't realize that causes all those resentments. That causes fear. That causes greed. That causes jealousy. That causes all the negative emotions stem from that one thing. Self-centeredness is the core of our problem. And you can't stop having it by yourself. It's not a decision. A decision is involved, but it's more than that. You've got to have this power help you do it. You've got to recognize it. You've got to tell somebody about it. You've got to become entirely ready to be rid of it. And then you've got to ask the power to take it. And then what else? Then you got to start doing the power's business. Feed my sheep. Stop worrying about taking care of old number one and get involved with the other guy. I don't know the day it happened to me. I went to a lot of meetings the first year I was sober because I needed a meeting. I went to meetings and I expected that meeting to give me what I needed. And by gosh, it did. But then one night I caught myself going to a meeting when I didn't need a meeting. And I was going because I liked what went on there. I liked that certain something in the eyes of the women. I liked what I saw there. I saw people getting well. I came to know that I was helping people get well. I was dragging drunks in off the street. Some of them weren't going to make it. I knew that. It's just an exercise. This one hadn't got enough brains left to make it, obviously. Only somebody's 2 weeks later, or a month later, or 3 months later, turns out to be a really bright person. Turns out to be a college graduate, an army officer, a successful businessman, a good father, whatever. I saw that happen. If I'd known that was going to happen, I'd have made some before pictures so we could take some after and show you the difference. But I didn't know it was going to happen. But then I began to believe it was going to happen. You see, I had seen a miracle, and one had come to me. I saw my life change. I found myself going down the Central Expressway one night singing a song. I don't know when I had last sung a song, but I'm driving along and I'm singing. And I suddenly realized, my God, you're singing a song. And I looked around to see if anybody was watching me. Then I didn't give a damn. I just sang the next verse. I was experiencing the joy of being free of myself. The joy of being service to God and my fellow man. Not big, not anything dramatic, but I was doing it. I was a part of it. I was a part of the solution and no longer a part of the problem. And that's the power. That's come to me in more ways than I can tell you about. I've had, we all immature in a way because we expect it to get good for us and then never to get bad again. It don't work that way. It doesn't work that way. Life keeps coming. I've had both of my folks die. I had a mother that I really loved. She was the closest thing I ever had. And I always knew, she knew I was a mess up. She knew I was drinking. She told me I was going to ruin my family. She told me I was going to ruin my life. And I told her I had to do what I had to do. And a long time I honored her by not drinking in her house. And then finally I decided, who in the hell is she to tell me where I'm supposed to drink? So I began to drink in her home. And I hurt her a lot. She was the first person that I made an amend to. I mailed her a copy of the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous the week I came in. And I told her that's what I'm going to try to do. She read it to my dad. And my dad would have bought Alcoholics Anonymous if he could have. Every time they passed the hat, he'd reach for his wallet and he was going to just dump a bunch of money in there. And I told him he couldn't make a contribution. We're self-supporting. He could never understand that. But she was a very, very special person to me. A little Irishman. I made amends to her and I got my life straightened out with her. She had cancer
Once she had cancer when I was drinking. Once they had an operation, and I was going to go to her home and stay sober because she didn't want me to drink while that was going on. And I waited outside the operating room. The doctor came out and told me, he said, it's impossible. There's nothing to do. It's everywhere. And I walked right out of that hospital and went and got in a car and drove to a liquor store and started drinking. And I drank the rest of the time I was there. I was of no use to anybody. Everybody knew I was drinking. My mother she awakened and knew what was going on, and she knew I was drinking. They sent me home, or they told me, I said I was going to go home, and they said, that's fine, Jerry, you go home. I was of no value to anybody. Alcoholics Anonymous came along, and chemotherapy worked for her again for a while, several years. And that's when I came in and mailed her the book, and we got our lives straightened out, and I was very happy, and she was very happy. And I got a call one day, and they said they're going to have to operate again. And I went up there, and she called me in the room, and we talked and visited a little while. And she said, Jerry, this may be a bear. She said, I'm awful tired, and I've been fighting this stuff for 17 years. She said, get the family in here. I want to talk to them. So I got the family in there. And she said, folks, she said, I don't know whether I'm going to make this or not. I said, I'm going to try. I'm going to give it a good go, but said it's going to be pretty hard. She said, now, it's going to be a rough time for all of you. But said, Jerry here will be your strength. You can lean on him. You can lean on him. They operated on her, and she lived long enough that I began to pray that she would die. I didn't ever think I'd do that, but there comes a time to die, and it was pretty obvious to me that her time had come. She was hurting a lot, and it was a bad deal. My dad had a ruptured, an ulcer that blew on him the day of her death. They had to take out most of his stomach. He didn't get to go to the funeral. I had to do all the funeral. I had to do everything there. Do you know that not one time, not 1 minute, not 1 second did I ever consider taking a drink? Do you know the only difference between that time and the time before was the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and the power? I was given the power to do what I needed to do and be what I needed to be that day, one day at a time, and it was okay. That power has been given to me in all sorts of ways. That power has been passed on to me, to my son, who came into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous after a few years. That power is the power that led me to get a good, strong relationship back with my daughter. And my daughter and I are very close now. She's going to get married in December. And I'm not sure I'm too crazy about that idea, but God will give me the power to get through that also, I believe. He's just not quite up to her standards, I don't believe. No, he's a great kid. And I love him and I love her. And I know they're started on the right track. But see, the power's there. The power cuts across every aspect of your life. There is nothing that the power will not reach. Let me tell you one more story and I'm going to quit. First time I found the power, after I'd been sober, the first time I became aware, my first belief experience came when I was at a little town out here at Van, Texas. I came out with the Baptist, kind of a group to come out and find God. I was looking for God. I was going to give him one more shot, and I was looking for God hard. And I came out, and I had just got there, and it hadn't been there an hour, by God, and I already found out I'd made a mistake. I knew better than get with the Baptists. I'm a Methodist. I should not have gotten off the Baptist. They do things that we don't do in the Methodist Church. We're very restrained in the Methodist Church. And the guy set us in a room there and got us all in a circle, and he said, now to start this weekend off, let's all go around and tell what God's doing in our life. And it's time for me to go. I really needed to go somewhere, anywhere. I was not going to give any kind of a damn testimonial. I didn't like testimonials. They made me uncomfortable. I couldn't find a way out of that damn room. I was all the way across it. And people started going around telling their damn things, talking about it. I was the only alcoholic in the room, as far as I know. And I looked at those damn people, and in spite of myself, I began to listen to them. Those earth people out there, they got little bitty problems. I mean, little bitty problems. One guy couldn't do his job without God. Well, hell, I done all right without God doing my job. Another one couldn't raise their family without God. Well, I had a pretty good family, and I didn't have any help from God, I didn't think. And then I began to think, here I am, I'm a real alcoholic. I've been sober 3 months. I said that little old prayer. I said that little old prayer that, I'm going to, God, if you're there, I'm going to give you this drinking problem. And if you take it, I may do some more business with you. I said it that day when the little 24-hour day book told me to do that. The next day was when I found out I needed some help, that I needed to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd had a prayer answered, and I found people there, and I found examples there, and my life had turned around. And if I told these damn Baptists about that experience, and the fact that they were in the midst of a real alcohol with a real alcoholic in their midst who hadn't had a drink in 3 months, I'd blow the socks off them Baptists is what I'd do. And then I just thought, hell, I'll just tell them. I'm probably never going to see these people again. I'll just tell them. And so I began to rehearse my speech in my mind, and I didn't hear anybody else for a while because I had to practice my speech, you see. I had to get it all down just right. And it came around to me, and there was a little girl stood up next to me. She was 32 years of age. She was brown, had pretty brown hair. She had pretty eyes. She was slender. She stood up and had a little smile on her lips. She said, I'm so grateful for the power. I don't know how I would do it without the power. So grateful to know that God is here today, and He will be here for my children, whose ages are 2 and 3, even though I won't be here to help them find Him. I'm grateful that my husband has a good policy of hospitalization insurance and will not be burdened financially by my last illness. I know that he will find someone to live his life with, because God doesn't mean for us to live alone. And I began to realize that I was listening to a 32-year-old mother of 2 children talk about dying of cancer, not next year, in the next month or 6 weeks. And she stood there with that smile on her lips, calm and radiant, and was looking at right in the eye. And I had my great thought, my first great thought. And it was, ain't you got it tough, cowboy? Ain't you got it tough? You've been sitting around AA meetings, sucking your thumb, feeling sorry for yourself for having to give up alcohol, for changing your life, for all the things that have gone on in your life. Haven't you got it tough? You've got an incurable disease, she's got an incurable disease. You've got a solution and she's got one. How do you like yours compared to hers? All you got to do is go to meetings, practice these principles, and you can go anywhere in life, do anything you want to do, see your kids grow up, prosper. Life will come your way. Ain't you got it tough? That's the very last day I've ever felt sorry for myself for being an alcoholic. I don't feel very sorry for you either, as a matter of fact. I really don't. We've been given a great and a beautiful gift. You know, it took me a full year to realize that that lady had the same solution that I do. Problem's never too big for the power. I saw a magnificent demonstration of that power that day. Of course, I took it personally. And my first reaction was, haven't I got a better deal? But the fact is, I didn't have a bit better deal than she had. She had the power. And we have the power, and it's a gift to us. We did not deserve it. We came here demanding justice, and we're damn glad to settle for mercy. And our responsibility, those to whom much is given, much is expected, we would still be in Akron, Ohio today, except for the one thing. This whole process is designed to get us out of ourselves and to be of maximum service to God and our fellow man. That's what the whole exercise is for. That's what the cure is. That is the solution. That is what the power asks of you and I every day. Give. Give to your fellow man. Give to those who need it what you have been given. And the more you give, the more you get. May not be the same kind, but the rewards are always there. The benefits of this program are just, every area of my life has been touched by that. Thank you for having me. I hope that Alcoholics Anonymous 36 years from today is strong or stronger in Athens, Texas than it is today. I really hope that every one of you have a rotten alcoholic that you sponsor this next year, and there are just exactly twice as many alcoholics in this room next year as there are this. If that happens, you will be among the most blessed. Thank you.